Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Bleach, Soul Society, The Snake Entry Arc, Episode 38, Desperation, The Broken Zangetsu. Episode in a nutshell is a brief summary of what happened in the episode. So we basically get, as has become the habit of the series, a little bit of a recap from the last episode where they show us the last 2 to 3 minutes of the previous episode before starting into this one. So we once again get Shad's defeat at the hands of the captain. I've forgotten his name. But then we also do see that he does get shown mercy as he knocks Shad out and of course does end up, wounding him with his sword. However, he is not dead. So he does leave him alive, and this is against Nanao's wishes because while they're in the end of their fight, Nanao gets a message from the central headquarters about Aizen's passing, which leads her to believe that one of the Ryoka must be responsible, and therefore she does not want to leave Chad alive, but ultimately her captain makes the decision to leave him alive and show mercy, and they leave. Also later in the episode, we get a brief look at Aizen's body laying there while 3 of the captains observe the body. But the majority of this episode is back to the Ichigo Kenpachi fight, and we start with Ichigo disgracefully running away out of his mind with cowardice and panic, and he runs, and finally is able to, after he gets a little bit of distance from Kenpachi, slow down and start to think about calming down and recentering himself, and he does manage it mostly until he then feels Chad's spiritual energy suddenly decrease. But after concentrating, he does feel Chad's spirit again and that he is still alive, and he manages to calm himself, sharpen his spiritual energy. He goes over Zangetsu's words when he first found him and found his name while he was training about letting go of the fear, not letting fear consume you, how, if you're afraid, you're weaker than if you are not, and, all of the other stuff, you have to say, I will cut, not that I will try to cut, and all that other stuff. So we've basically got Zangetsu's words of wisdom as well as Kirihara's words of wisdom going through his head. Kenpachi then arrives again. Ichigo stands up, fights, and manages to wound him, whereas before he wasn't able to cut him, now he's able to get a cut in. However, this then gives Ichigo a bit of an ego boost so far that he's like, ha, you shouldn't have underestimated me. I can cut you now. And Kenpachi basically informs him that I wear bells so people can hear me coming so I can enjoy my fight more. He wears his eye patch for the same reason. His Zanpakuto has no name and is permanently in a sealed state because he doesn't, his spiritual force is so great he doesn't need it to be unsealed. And in fact, if he did unseal it, it would be so powerful that pretty much everybody would die because they'd be so fragile before it. And basically scolds Ichigo for loosening up and not keeping the tension in the fight. And he then pushes his sword through Zangetsu, breaking it in half and right into Ichigo, who then falls down. Kenpachi then starts walking away, and Ichigo, while he's on the ground, sees the humanoid form of Zangetsu coming towards him, and that is where we get our to be continued screen. So now that we've summarized what happened briefly, it's time to rank the episode. As always, we'll be ranking on the personal ranking list, second, which uses my emotion and opinion, and then first we will rank on the mostly objective ranking list, which uses set values of key storytelling elements to determine a mostly objective score, though bias and judgment can still apply. So that now brings us to our mostly objective rank values, and we'll start with 3 points for our multi-arc supporting character development. And this is the fact that Kenpachi's sword has no name. We then have the multi-arc main character development, which is that Ichigo's sword, Zangetsu, breaks, and then the hallucination of Zangetsu arrives. And that's worth 4 points. Worth another 4 points was our multi-arc main character growth, which is Ichigo being able to eventually adjust his mindset, gain the calmness, sharpen his spiritual power, so much so that he is actually able to cut Kenpachi, which he wasn't able to do at the start of their confrontation, showing that he has grown since then, bringing us to 10 points. Or sorry, bringing us to 11 points. 8. Yeah, 11 points. However, there is one negative to this episode, or sorry, there's 2 negatives to this episode, my bad. First negative is, of course, the character regression. Ichigo grows strong enough to be able to cut Kenpachi, and then, like, immediately loses it because he lets his ego get in the way, thinks he's stronger than he is, forgets all the panic that he was just going through, like, 5 minutes ago, and ends up with his sword broken and on the ground at the end of the episode. That's minus 1 point, bringing us to 10 points. And then worth one more minus 1 point is the excessive exposition. Now, the reason I think it's excessive is that we saw Aizen on the wall, we saw, Hinamori's freak out, we saw Kira's unjust detainment, we saw, the meeting about him dying. Now we're getting yet again more messages going out that he's dying. We now get his body seen, and it's like, okay, we get it. He's supposedly dead at this point. We get it. It's done. Like, I understand this. I think even a child, like, I would say this, like, series would probably be meant for, like, preteen, early teen boys or something like that. That's where I would fit the age group, because it is a bit gory for, like, small children. So by that age, I think they get it. I think all of us would get it. That, like, I don't think they have to keep driving home that Aizen is supposedly dead at this point. We get it. He's dead. You want us to believe he's dead. So I just feel at this point now it's starting to get excessive, and that's another minus 1 point, which then does leave us with a 9 out of 10 episode. So now for our arc ranking far and our mostly objective ranking. In first, we have Enter the World of the Shinigami, The Man Who Hates Shinigami, Assemble the Gotai 13, Formation the Worst Tag, The Resolution to Kill, Renji's Confrontation, The Star and the Stray Dog. This episode comes in 8th, Desperation, The Broken Zangetsu, 14 days before Rukia's execution, Tragedy of Dawn, Aizen assassinated, The Darkness Which Approaches, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Orihime targeted, Release the Death Blow, Break Through the Shinigami's Encompassing Net, Motive of the Fist. 17th is Kenpachi's Reki Approaches, and then Miracle, the Mysterious New Hero, is in last place so far. To my personal ranking, as I've mentioned before, certain moments of this Ichigo Kenpachi fight are my favorites of the series, or at least some of the most memorable of the series, so I'm excited about that. I was excited about his growth when he was able to finally cut Kenpachi. I was disappointed in his immediate regression back to being a failure. I was kind of also disappointed by his, initial cowardice and panic. Now, unrelated specifically to this episode, but just an observation of the anime genre in general. One thing I'd really like to know is the psychology behind how they handle fights. Because whatever that psychology is, I don't think that it works on me because I find it so frustrating that we'll start a fight. We'll get, our adrenaline pumping. You've captured my attention. I am entertained. I am invested. I am enjoying a fight. And all of the emotions are there to really enjoy this fight. And then you show it for maybe like 2, 3 minutes and then immediately cut to some boring scene with characters that at this particular moment I don't care about because I'm enjoying a fight and I want to finish the fight so that they can talk a bit. And I just find it so annoying as a viewer. And it's not just Bleach that does it. One Piece does it for sure. Fairy Tail, I think, did it. Bleach does it. Naruto does it. Even, like, to a certain extent, shows like Death Note will go back and forth. And I understand wanting to show, like, a wide range of, like, all the characters, like, here while they're fighting, here's what's going on elsewhere. But at the same time, I am invested in my fight. At least, like, finish the fight, then go and talk to the other characters before coming back for the aftermath. Like, I don't know why they get me invested only to pull me out of those emotions, out of that investment, out of that excitement. Like, I feel like that would be detrimental because you've gotten somebody so invested. To remove that investment breaks that emotion. And I feel like it's a detriment. Like, not enough to make anybody stop watching. Like, I continue to watch and I will continue to watch. But I don't enjoy it as much as I otherwise would have if you had kept my energy up, kept my excitement up, kept my investment up in the fight. Like, I'd like to see the fight start to finish. And to be honest, if I wasn't doing these videos, the way that I usually watch it is I will either fast forward or like skip ahead to get back to the fight that I'm interested in, and I lose those other elements of story because I am so pissed off at being drawn out of my excitement that I want to get back into it, and then I skip potentially important parts of the story because you just had to place them in the middle of a fight that I was more interested in than these little pieces of talking and exposition. And I feel like I'd really like to know what the psychology is behind pulling the audience out of those exciting and investment worthy moments for talking of all things. Like, what is, like, it has to be a psychology because so many anime do it. But what is that psychology is what I want to know because I personally find it very frustrating. I don't enjoy it. But as for actually scoring this episode, it is one of my favorite fights. I did enjoy us getting back at Kenpachi by actually being able to wound him. I liked that he did have that brief glimmer of some character growth before ultimately dying. I like that we were left on the cliffhanger with the sword broken, him unable to move even though he's trying to will himself to, and then old man Zangetsu walking towards him. Well, not old, maybe middle-aged man. Zangetsu walking towards him. I liked that scene. I liked the fighting part. I was frustrated about being pulled out of the fighting parts. So ultimately, I did decide to give it an 8 because it is a very good episode. It just does have its flaws, but that's not really its fault because, like I said, lots of anime do it, and I don't really understand why. Because all I feel is frustration, and I would think you would not want your audience to feel negative emotions associated to it. You'd want to just try to keep positive emotions so people keep coming back over and over. But once again, I've already done that rant, so I'm not going to do it again. We will start our arc ranking so far. I did it, like I said, an 8 out of 10. And our list is in first, The Resolution to Kill, Enter the World of the Shinigami. I put this episode in third place, Desperation, The Broken Zangetsu, Kenpachi Zareki Approaches, Miracle, The Mysterious New Hero, Formation, The Worst Tag, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Renji's Confrontation, The Star and the Stray Dog, Assemble the Gotai 13, 14 Days Before Rukia's Execution, Release the Death Blow, Break Through the Shinigami's Encompassing Net, Tragedy of Dawn, The Man Who Hates Shinigami, Aizen assassinated. The darkness which approaches. I have to say, once again, I'm going to comment on it. I chose aesthetic over function, but that orange just completely disappears into the blue when I'm trying to read these sometimes. I don't regret the choice though, because aesthetic over function is something that is completely something I do. And then lastly, 17th, motive of the fist, and then in 18th we have Orihime targeted. And with that, that brings us to the series ranking so far. On our mostly objective ranking, Agent of the Shinigami arc came in 84%. Soul Society the Sneak Entry arc currently has a score of 131 out of 210. And then personal ranking, Agent of the Shinigami arc was at 63%, and Soul Society the Sneak Entry arc is currently at 104 out of 210. And to be honest, I thought this was one of my favorite arcs, but now I'm thinking there's 2 Soul Society arcs early in the series, and I think it's actually the next one that's my favorite, after watching these scores stay relatively low. So look forward to that. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Bleach, Soul Society, The Snake Entry Arc, Episode 38, Desperation, The Broken Zangetsu. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.